And I have to tell you, this worries me terribly because it's worse now than it was back in the Bush years. These guys went to jail, but the people that they have helped put into place in government are not. So that just gives you a very, very superficial treatment of the problem of influence operators inside, as I say, the wire. Concessions. I suspect you are aware, perhaps, of some of these. They may have come to your attention through press accounts. They may be things that you were struck by at the time, didn't seem right, but weren't that big a deal. Let me give you a couple of examples. The use of federal tax funds, or for that matter, state and local tax funds, to create special preferential prayer spaces, footbaths, and the like for the use exclusively of Muslims. Not so far from here in Tennessee, the Tyson's food plant, Shelbyville, Tennessee, had the labor union asked for Eid, the breaking of the fast of Ramadan, supplant Labor Day. Time off for prayers, textbooks in the schools, mosques, triumphalist mosques in places like Ground Zero. These are all perhaps seemingly mild or minor or acceptable concessions. This one is one that I think is just stunning, particularly in an age of the Americans for Disabilities Act. But in Minnesota, Somali cab drivers were given dispensation from picking up blind people because their seeing eye dogs were considered haram, impure, under the program of Sharia. This cartoon sort of captures that thought. Don't bring that Constitution into my taxi cab. But it's no laughing matter. These are the sorts of concessions that, combined with influence operations, that combined with the willful blindness, facilitate the insinuation, piecemeal, incrementally, of Sharia into our society. Let me give you another example. You ever heard of Sharia compliant finance? It's a $1 trillion industry now. It's one that, if you know anything about it at all, you probably associate with the effort to accommodate, kind of like socially responsible investing for, Methodists, Jews, Catholics, Lutherans. Just accommodating the fact that according to Sharia, there isn't supposed to be interest earned or provided, or that money goes to pork or gambling or tobacco or alcohol or Western defense. Muslim defense is okay, not Western defense. But what actually makes some transaction Sharia compliant? Yeah, it's supposed to be these sorts of things, but in practice, it comes down to the fact that a Muslim Sharia authority, a recognized Sharia authority, says it is halal, pure, kosher, if you will, rather than haram. People like Taqi Usmani and Youssef Al-Qaradawi, let me just say a word about these two guys because they're preeminent figures in the Sharia-compliant finance industry. Taqi Usmani used to be the, I believe, Chief Justice of the Sharia Supreme Court of Pakistan. He helpfully wrote a book, in English no less, in which he described at great length the obligation of Muslims, even in societies like ours, which allow them to practice their faith and to engage in dawah, as they call it, recruitment, proselytization, they still are obliged to engage in violent jihad. That's what his book says. Not just the stealthy kind, the violent kind. We pointed this out to the folks at the Dow Jones Islamic Index. Did you know that there was a Dow Jones Islamic Index? Well, he was the chief Sharia authority for the Dow Jones Islamic Index, and when we pointed this natty little problem out, they disappeared him like Trotsky from the old photos with Lenin. He was gone. But the program continues. They've changed the name of the index, but it continues. And Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, anybody here regular on Al Jazeera television? Sorry. He's got his own show on Al Jazeera, Arabic, not English, Arabic, which he uses to foment jihad against Americans, against Jews, against children and women who are infidels. I mean, a pretty unsavory character. He also, by the way, was in Cairo a couple of months back, shortly after the revolution. He was brought in by the ostensibly friendly Egyptian military-led government. Went to Tahrir Square, the center of the revolution in Cairo. By some estimates, had a crowd of 2 million people there to hear him talking about how he wanted them to accompany him in a march on Al-Quds. Anybody know what Al-Quds is? Jerusalem. So not perfect that this is the guy who is leading the Sharia-compliant finance business, especially since he has called the money that it helps spin off in the form of zakat, as they call tithing, jihad with money. Kind of a clue that this isn't really a good thing for us, wouldn't you say? It's in fact the case that at least 1/8 of that zakat under Sharia goes directly into supporting jihad. Material support, in other words, for terror. Well, I'm fond of asking at this point, we all are taxpayers here, right? Okay, I just wanted to show you the next slide in that context because you actually own the largest purveyor of Sharia-compliant insurance products in the world. Did you know that? Yeah, AIG. We have brought suit against the federal government on the grounds that it can't possibly be constitutional. For a government that is supposed to separate church and state to own a company that is promoting not just, by the way, Sharia insurance products, but Sharia itself. We lost, actually, at the trial level, and we now have it under appeal. But it's something that you all need to be aware of and watching. Another of these techniques is kind of related to the first, keeping us ignorant by making it clear that it is impermissible for us to talk about this. Blasphemy, they call it. Slandering of Islam. The organization that works with the Muslim Brotherhood aggressively is a 57-member bloc you may never have heard of. The Organization of the Islamic Conference is how they used to be called. Now they call themselves Islamic Cooperation, still OIC. It is the largest bloc, multinational bloc in the United Nations, by far the most powerful, and increasingly calling the shots there, which helps explain why that's working out so well. The OIC has had a 10-year plan underway since over a decade ago, I think now, for promoting prohibitions on anything that gives offense to Islam or Muslims. Specifically, a Human Rights Council, you're familiar with that operation, I hope, the antithesis of Human Rights Councils. But this is the outfit where they've been trying to promote this resolution. And in 2010, the Obama administration actually co-sponsored a slightly watered down version of it. And now Hillary Clinton is trying to figure out how to bridge, as she puts it, the prohibition on this kind of speech with our First Amendment rights. I don't know about you, but I can't see the bridge there. I think it's kind of, you either have freedom of expression, as the Constitution provides for, or you compromise it in ways that mean you don't. Finally, and I want to thank Paul here because he's on point on this particular problem. The effort to insinuate Sharia into our courts. We did a study of 50 instances in which somebody, just a tiny microcosm of the larger body of U.S. jurisprudence, 50 cases in which somebody, the plaintiff or the defendant, tried to insinuate Sharia into a court proceeding. And in 27 of those cases, in 23 different states, we found, either at the trial level or at the appellate level, the court ruled that Sharia should be used to adjudicate the matter. Now, perhaps the most outrageous of these instances was the case in New Jersey. You may have heard of it. It got some bad press. Because a Moroccan-born woman, Muslim, now an American citizen, sought a protective order against her husband, also Muslim, on the grounds that he was systematically torturing and raping her. Only to have the trial judge say, I can see no criminal intent here. He's just practicing his religious beliefs under Sharia. Now, that was overturned on appeal, as one would pray. But the point is, how could that even have happened in the first place? The way it is happening is because Sharia is now being seen by judges as just another body of law from which to draw in adjudicating matters before them. And it's why we believe it is absolutely imperative that we adopt something called American laws for American courts, which I'm very proud to say Paul has successfully gotten through the House here in Missouri. Unfortunately, it was sandbagged in the Senate, but we're hoping he's going to take another run at it next time around and do so successfully. 3 other states have adopted it so far: Louisiana, Tennessee, and Arizona. About 20 others, like yours, got it partway through the pipeline before the end of the legislative session, or it's still in the pipeline. We're hoping that most of them, or at least some of them, will succeed where they failed. So